My name is Cassidy Ward. I'm 31, a financial systems engineer, and apparently the only one in my family who reads past the subject line. It was a Monday. I was halfway through reconciling ledger anomalies for a green energy credit union when the email pinged. Subject line: urgent, confirmation of collateralized property Blanco Ranch. At first, I thought it was phishing, until I read the body. Dear MS Ward, as per loan agreement #C91277, filed on June 14th, Blanco Ranch, parcel ID TXBNC 52719, has been pledged as collateral for a commercial venture loan of $390,000. Kindly confirm your role as primary guarantor and your preferred method of repayment. I stopped breathing. Blanco Ranch, my grandmother's land, 5 generations deep. Not just land legacy, and very much not available for collateral. Not since I moved it quietly into an irrevocable trust 4 years ago. The kind of trust they couldn't touch, not with a signature, not with a sob story, not even with blood. I checked the sender, real address, legit firm, filed in Travis County. Then I saw the kicker. Signed on your behalf by Mr. Thomas Ward, power of attorney granted March 11th, 2025. My father, a man who once asked me if escrow was a video game, a man who hadn't touched a legal document since the time he tried to co-sign a lease with a Blockbuster card. And now, he'd signed away my name on property he didn't even own for a startup called Metaverse Matrimony Ventures, Inc. I didn't laugh. I didn't cry. I forwarded the email to my legal counsel with one line. They forged a lien on a trust asset. Let's begin. Blanco Ranch wasn't just property, it was a compass. The only place where I wasn't a walking paycheck or a disappointment in flats. It smelled like mesquite and mint, like sun-baked wood and my grandmother's rainwater soap. Every summer until I was 17, I was dropped off there like an old coat. Cass can stay with Grandma, because I was the quiet one, the easy one, the one who didn't ask for anything. My cousins went to tennis camp. Delilah flew to Rome to study perfume. I learned how to rotate crops and read wind patterns off barbed wire. I still remember the day Grandma whispered, "This land's got bones older than any of us. Don't ever let them bury it in debt." She gave me the deed on my 26th birthday. No ceremony, just a manila folder and a look. I moved it into a trust 2 weeks later. Sage Hill Land Trust. Ironclad. Irrevocable and invisible unless you knew where to look. I never bragged. Never announced it at dinner. Not even when Dad joked, "If you don't want kids, at least let Delilah use the ranch for a spa retreat." They didn't know how much I gave. 8 years of wiring rent just in case. Paying off credit cards I never touched, fixing roofs I didn't sleep under, but I never reminded them, because I thought silence meant peace, and that was my mistake. They didn't take my silence as love. They took it as permission, until now. The first thing I checked was the power of attorney. Filed March 11th, 2025. Signed Cassidy M. Ward, witnessed by a notary I'd never met. Stamped with a seal from Kerrville 2 hours from where I live. My signature, scanned. Lifted straight off a lease I signed in 2018, I found the pixel clone. The notary, fake license number. Retired in 2019, dead since 2021. The email chain between my father and Delilah, sloppy. They attached the loan package in the thread. Subject line: Metaverse wedding deck plus Cassidy's authorization, lol. Lol. It wasn't just betrayal. It was laziness. They thought I wouldn't check. They bet on the same version of me who paid their overdue taxes without a word. The same version who missed her own birthday dinner to finalize their mortgage relief paperwork. What they didn't know, I had alerts set on every parcel ID tied to the ranch. The moment they tried to record a lien, I got pinged. That's why I got the email. They thought Blanco Ranch was still mine. It wasn't. It belonged to Sage Hill now. And Sage Hill didn't forgive fraud. The wedding startup they risked it all for, Metaverse Matrimony Ventures, Inc., Delilah's new brainchild. A digital venue platform where couples could marry on the moon, undersea, or on top of Everest, all in VR. Their promo tagline, "Real love, unreal locations." They promised investors a land-backed, asset-secured headquarters in the hill country. They even uploaded photos of Blanco Ranch on their pitch deck, labeled it company-owned. But it wasn't. It never was, and now it never would be. My lawyer's name is Alina Castillo. She doesn't smile. She doesn't blink fast. She used to audit hedge funds in New York, then got tired of watching men get away with things. I sent her the email at 9:12 a.m. By 9:19, she replied, "Trust is intact. They're cooked." At 10:02, we filed an official challenge of fraudulent lien under Section 12.002 of the Texas Civil Practice and Remedies Code. By noon, a temporary injunction was issued, all activity related to Blanco Ranch frozen. That same afternoon, Alina walked into the Kettleville County Records office with a hard copy of the Sage Hill Land Trust filing, dated March 3rd, 2023, notarized, registered, and sealed. Filed under a trustee alias I created myself, everything pre-verified, pre-indexed, invisible to anyone who didn't know what to type, which of course they didn't. That was their first mistake. Their second, thinking trust law was too boring for a girl who builds fraud detection models for fun. The clerk pulled up their forged documents, side by side with ours. "I don't get it," he said. "Why would they try to pledge something that legally isn't theirs?" Alina didn't flinch. They thought family wasn't going to fight back. What she didn't say, what I didn't need to say, was this. I didn't hide the trust to hurt them. I hid it because I knew one day they might try. The freeze hit on a Thursday. 3 separate banks received notice of injunction. 2 paused all activity. The third tried to argue until they read the word fraudulent conveyance. That was enough. Delilah's business account, locked. Her fiancé's crypto wallet, flagged and frozen for review. The payment processor they used for Metaverse Matrimony, gone overnight. Investors started calling. The pitch deck, the one with Blanco Ranch plastered across slide 6, had been shared in private investor circles. Some of them had wired $5, $10, even $50,000, believing the project had land equity backing. They didn't call Delilah. They called the Texas Department of Financial Regulation. By Friday morning, my phone buzzed with a headline from Austin Ledger. "Startup backed by fraudulent land claim under state investigation." A local news anchor pulled aerial shots of the ranch from Google Maps and asked, on live television, "Did this family build their empire on a lie?" Delilah panicked. She went live on social. Red eyes, full makeup, gold engagement ring catching the light on purpose. "My sister hates that I'm finally happy. She's jealous because I'm building something. She just wants to ruin my wedding, and she doesn't even believe in marriage." I watched the whole thing on mute. Under the video, comments flooded in. "Girl, you used her land and forged her name. You're crying in HD about a crime. Tell us how the notary's been dead for 3 years. Meanwhile, my father said nothing. He stayed silent, just like he always did until it benefited him to lie. But this time, silence wasn't safety. It was admission, and the storm was only just starting. The courtroom was smaller than I imagined. No gallery, just rows of folding chairs and fluorescent lighting that made everyone look tired. My father sat at the defendant's table, flanked by 2 attorneys he probably couldn't afford. Delilah didn't show up until halfway through the hearing. She wore white, like this was still her wedding. I didn't look at them. I looked at the judge. Her name was Renee Aldridge, mid-50s, no nonsense. The kind of woman who didn't flinch when people cried on the stand. Alina went first, laid it all out with surgical calm. The 2023 transfer to Sage Hill, Trust the invalid notary license, the scanned signature from a 2018 apartment lease metadata proving the forged PDF was edited at 2:13 a.m. on my father's home IP and the clincher. A recorded phone call between Delilah and her fiancé where she says, "Cass never checks anything. We'll file under her name and clean it up later." No emotion, no shock, just truth, stacked like dominoes, and then knocked down. When it was my turn to speak, I said one sentence. They committed fraud on property they never owned with a signature I never gave for a dream that was never real. My father tried to explain, said it was a misunderstanding, said they thought the trust was symbolic, said the notary must have messed up the date. Delilah, finally cornered, tried the sympathy card. I just wanted to do something big. I thought if it worked, maybe Cassidy would be proud of me for once. Judge Aldridge didn't even blink. She turned to the clerk and read the ruling without pause. This court finds the lien forged, the documents invalid, and the actions of the defendants in violation of both state and federal statutes on fraudulent conveyance. In addition to criminal referral, all rights of access, claim, or future interest in Blanco Ranch are hereby revoked in perpetuity. No restitution, no second chances, just one last sentence that settled like stone. Family does not mean free license. The ruling was final, no appeals, no last-minute negotiations. 3 days later, my mother left a voicemail. "You could have just talked to us. You didn't have to go nuclear." I didn't call back. There was nothing left to explain to people who only understood silence when it served them. My father's accounts were flagged by the IRS within the week. Turns out, when you forge one document, you usually forge others. His accountant disappeared. So did their housekeeper. Even Delilah's wedding planner backed out and filed a breach of contract lawsuit for emotional distress. The crypto startup's page went dark. Their investors began circulating a different kind of deck now, screenshots, emails, legal warnings. Meanwhile, the ranch, still here, untouched. The front gate was still rusted at the bottom, and the windmill still creaked when the weather turned. I repainted the barn myself, bought new irrigation pipes, turned Grandma's old sewing room into a small office with dual monitors and a steel file cabinet no one else had keys to. Sometimes, neighbors asked if I ever planned to sell. "Not for anything you can wire," I'd say. Other times, people who used to call me sweetheart or too intense asked if I'd moved back for good. I hadn't moved. I just stopped leaving. It was 6 months later when the reporter came. Freelance, young, nervous smile. He wore boots too clean to be local and carried a notebook like it might save him from the dust. He stood in the driveway and asked permission to record. I said yes. He cleared his throat and looked at the ranch house behind me. "Some folks say you destroyed your own family, that they've lost everything because of you. Do you feel guilty?" I didn't answer right away. Instead, I leaned against the porch railing my grandmother built in 1972, ran my hand over the grain, and thought of all the things they tried to sign in my name. Then I looked him straight in the eye. I didn't destroy them. They bet I'd stay silent. They bet wrong. He scribbled something, looked up again. "You're a financial engineer, right? But people online say you're a legal expert." I shrugged. I just got tired of seeing women lose what's theirs because someone told them trust was too complicated. He asked what was next. I nodded toward the pasture where the foundation was being poured. A sign read, "Sage Hill Initiative Financial Literacy and Asset Protection for Rural Women, no press release." No donors, just clean accounting and hard soil. And one last thing I added before he left. They thought I didn't understand the system. They forgot I built it. And now I teach others how not to lose to people who share their last name. He didn't ask anything after that. He just tipped his too clean hat and left the way he came.